Hello! If you're watching this video, you're probably either a subscriber of mine or you are somebody who doesn't understand the cover of this magazine and may have been sent this video by somebody who feels differently to you and wants to explain their point of view. Maybe they don't have the time, the words, or the patience to do so, but I do! What a time to be alive. Just before we get into all this like high profile shit, what is important to note here is that I am in this magazine on page 22. I am a power player. Perhaps I will change my Twitter bio, who can say? I did ask them if they would like me to supply them with a picture to accompany this article. They said no. And then they proceeded to scroll through my Instagram feed to 2015, when I looked a lot hotter than I do now, and used that. I'm very excited about it. I just think it's funny. And whether or not that will become relevant to the rest of this discussion remains to be seen. This is Tess Holliday. She is on the front of this month's Cosmopolitan magazine. I'm a selfish millennial, and when I got hold of a copy of this, I was just literally like, it's me! And I looked at the cover and was like, isn't that great they've put Tess Holliday on the front of the magazine? Didn't really consider how much controversy it would actually cause. Turns out a lot. This is Tess Holliday. She's a plus-size model. She's £300. Not to buy, that's rude. Let's not, this is a feminist channel, calm down. In weight, and she is a plus-size model and fashion professional. She's been a makeup artist for years. She's been in the industry for a long time. Cosmopolitan decided to feature her on the cover. Great times. Apparently not for everybody. Lots of people have been worried that this is holding up a bad example for people. It's really promoting obesity and adding to the obesity crisis in this country and really just sending off the wrong message. In some ways, I can completely understand how that might be your point of view. It makes sense up to a certain point. When you're using the logic fat is bad, fat is everybody's business, magazines are ideals, and young people are impressionable, it's a very short walk to get to the conclusion that this cover is bad news. The fact is, however, that more thought than that needs to be put into this. Questioning all those steps that get you to the point where you're like, this is a bad cover, is what is important, and just because an answer can be brought to logically with simple assumptions doesn't mean it's the right one. This video is just putting out some stuff for you to think about, some ways to think about it harder or maybe from a different angle. Let me know what you think in the comments. This is by no means a final stop on the debate or going to be a very thorough academic look at the issue, but this might be what I say to you if we were chatting about it in a pub. We have to assume at this point that I've only had one beer and I'm still coherent and not too passionate. First off, what is the role of magazines? It's important to read the source material you discuss before discussing it. For instance, when you open up the magazine, this is how the article is framed. Tess Holliday weighs £300. She grew up in a trailer in Mississippi and suffered abuse her whole childhood. She cried just minutes before this picture was taken. So what's her story? Immediately this is telling us that this is an empathetic article, it's journalistic, it's looking at somebody's whole life and not just their body. It is admittedly very sensationalised and a little bit I don't know, it feels a bit class inflammatory, but it's obviously signalling the more wider complex issues about this person that led them to be the person they are, and it's not only noting those things, but showcasing them as a key part. We also have to look more let's look wildly at this. We have to look more widely at the role of magazines in society. This is an act of journalism for some people, and the way that a lot of magazines have been used and abused in the past is as a replacement of deity, a way to say this is how you should be, here's what you should worship, here's what you should buy. And they're a tool of consumerism, really. Like, let's not get this wrong, I'm really not a fan of traditional magazines, even though thank you so much for featuring me, I love you, please don't. But like, inherently we have to question the perversion of journalism in the traditional magazine sector and say, you know, is this journalism? But on the face of it, we have to include magazines in the wider conversation about broadcasting and newspapers and say, hey, this is journalism. In its rawest form, magazines aren't supposed to be Bibles. They're not supposed to be declarations or manifestos. They are simply there to report what is happening. That is what journalism is. By Tess Holliday being a presence on this cover, she's not claiming to be perfect or claiming to be healthy. She's just claiming to exist. Something that, if you read magazines up until about 3 years ago, you wouldn't think was true. You wouldn't think, if you'd never left the house or you were from a different planet and you just read these kinds of magazines, you would think that fat people just didn't exist and that most people were white. So let's just unpack the idea where we think that this was ever setting out to be an example. What does the throne, the position, this little cutout section of a magazine, what does it demand of people who are on it? It usually demands that they have something to say, or or journalists have something to say about them, that they've experienced something or they have achieved something. I think in Tess Holliday's case, it's both of those things. She has achieved a lot of things and she has a lot of things to say. Why her physical presence can't represent the fact that her voice is in the magazine is concerning to me. If we're gonna scan Tess Holliday for corruption, we're gonna have to scan every single cover model in the history of Cosmopolitan for that same standard. How far does that go? Do we look into their history? Are we looking for excuses to the way they've been? If somebody is extremely skinny, are we going to ask what their childhood was like, how they got like that, and then maybe we'll allow them on the cover if we think it's justifiable enough. Like, we're not going to do that because that's really fucked up, and we're not going to do it with Tess Holliday either. That's weird. I think sometimes I almost just want to be like to people, calm down. We don't need to be nosy about people's status as healthy. There's lots of, I'm going to link an article below about how I think we might have been lied to about the whole healthy thing, whatever, and apparently like physicians and practicing GPs only spend like 19 hours of their whole education focusing on nutrition and the facts around that, which are very flawed and weird. But I'll leave an article below for that because I am not your expert. But fundamentally, I think there's almost a bit of positive Britishness coming through, if there is such a thing in me, that's just like, it's not polite. Stop it. It's not your business. There is a certain amount of privacy that every citizen is owed. One of that is around abortion, I think. The ways and hows and why of your abortion are literally nobody else's business. And the same with body. I think that if you're somebody who very passionately wants to have conversations with other people about their weight, I think that's a strange fetish of yours, a strange hobby. I think your worries can be spent in much more urgent ways. Here are some examples. The failure of the Balfour Agreement. How we're going to maintain a peaceful border between Northern and Republic of Ireland after Brexit. Why a contactless card requires you to tap on a screen to pay for your meal deal. These are all important questions. While I don't want to distract you from the issue, because obviously every issue is worth discussing in some realm, I think that the proportion and the worry that you give to this particular issue needs to just be addressed as a spectrum. I also think that there's less cause to worry for those people who are worried about this magazine affecting young people, is that I'm just worried that I just wonder how much impact a magazine like this still has. No offence, Cosmopolitan, you give me some laughs in the past. But seriously, the plummeting, you can look up the plummeting in paper and traditional media figures, like the way that they're reaching us is really depleted at this point. This magazine is probably going to sell a lot because of the controversial cover, and maybe we also have to ask why Cosmopolitan have done that. Maybe because they have a lot of amazing, incredible women working for them now. But as an institution, if we treat Cosmopolitan like one person, we'd say, Cosmo, you've done a lot of bad stuff in the past. Do you want to address the fact that you created, or at least one of the key creators of, a culture that doesn't accept people like Tess Holliday? Are we ever going to get a biography of that? We can ask why we give Cosmopolitan the power to be our heroine in body positivity. Why we give Cosmopolitan even the time of day, even entertain them as somebody who can rectify themselves from the past of weird fucked upness that they fed most of us in our teenage years, and thank them so much for saving us just a tiny bit from the toxic body policing that helps them run. This cover, I would guess, is the result of some really intelligent, incredible women who work at the magazine fighting for something like this to change the culture. But as a society, we also have the right to ask Cosmopolitan, the entity, why they feel the need to jump in at this late juncture on such an important issue that they fucked up. So one, should we be giving them this power? Should we be worrying about this kind of power that they have? Really, if you think this is promoting obesity. And then two, if they actually do have any power, let's go through their Twitter feed, shall we? I'm somebody who's not really anyone, I'll be honest. I am just a person in a world. I have a full-time job. I'm just sitting in my bedroom. Yes, I have some social media following, but I in no way can live off that, or I'm in any way a celebrity. And let's look at the interactions on my Twitter feed compared to Cosmopolitans. Like, this is what are we dealing with here? 2 retweets, 3 likes. 1 retweet, 3 likes. 1 retweet, 3 likes. 1 comment. This isn't the Twitter feed of a national conglomerate that's got a good, healthy, trusting relationship with their audience. Not that I'm bitter, but I've been in this magazine. It's like the 22nd. I've been out in this magazine for 22 days, and I've literally not gained any followers from it. So I don't know if people just don't care about the books pages, which is totally fine, but I think that some people who saw it were like, oh my god, you're going to be famous now, and I'm like, no change here. I'm proud of them. I think they're making themselves more relevant by doing this, and perhaps there is hope for old outlets like Cosmopolitan. But at the end of the day, the body positivity movement and all that's sailing her, it's already been here. It's been here for years. And then now you're worried that it's going to affect young girls when they have access to it whenever they want and love it and are part of the conversation in it and, like, probably bloody made it. Like, they invented this culture. You can't then, you know, like, Cosmopolitan isn't selling it to them as a new idea. Most of them already know about it, hopefully. You're not protecting young people. This is the product of the power of young people. Oh! In summary, Tess Holliday doesn't give a shit about your opinion. I think it states that several times in the article. People of Cosmopolitan who read Cosmopolitan probably will make up their own minds about it because they're quite intelligent. This conversation has been going on and will continue to go on outside of the realms of Cosmopolitan and its questionable influence. And in the light of new media and the real decline in the reach of traditional journalism means that this kind of feels like a debate about an offensive advert going up on the side of a cart pulled by a horse in the 1930s when everyone's like, we've been driving cars for a while now, I haven't seen a cart in ages. Like, magazines and newspapers used to be on the brink of things, like they were like the breaking news, but now because the internet's around, I'm like, they're inherently always going to be printing old news, so why not turn them into slow journalism, that delayed gratification that is so important and so valuable. I think that if you want good magazines to exist, you should buy them. I am a subscriber, a paying subscriber of Road Comely, and I love them, and I think we should have more conversations about how media can exist and thrive and people can be paid for their work without losing their wit or their integrity, because I think that's what magazines like Cosmopolitan have been before, and this is a really good step forward and I'm very excited for it, and I think it's a great move. But I also think we need to question the very framework in which we panic about this being the best or worst thing to happen to society, because simply Tess Holliday has already made an incredible impact on this world without Cosmopolitan. She's doing good things and there's probably nothing you can do about it. If you are worried that young girls are making choices that you don't agree with, question how you can help their education better. Question whether your assumption that they're not educated enough to make their own healthy decisions about their body is correct. Question whatever gender you identify it as, whether you really trust women and whether that needs to change. Thank you so much for watching. If you don't know who I am, my name is Lena. This is my channel. I talk about feminism and books and politics and poetry. Please tell me your opinions in the comments below. I would bloody love to hear them because I'm sure my argument wasn't as articulate as yours will be. So let me know. And I will see you in my next one. Frog Snog out.